Hi, I'm Ken Howard, and welcome to the Gay Therapy LA podcast. Today, I'd like to talk about gay men and starting your own business. This year, which is 2024, I'm celebrating 20 years in full-time private practice, being my own boss as a self-employed person. It's been quite a journey, but hugely rewarding, and I thank everyone who has been a part of that, from my clients to coaches to mentors to assistants and all kinds of service providers. I started my private practice as a psychotherapist part-time in 1998, and I'd been working as a clinician and mental health program administrator before that, being in the field now 32 years as a clinical and psychiatric social worker and coach, and more recently as an AASECT certified sex therapist. And in that time, I've worked with a lot of gay men who want to do the same thing that I did. Leave working for the man and for a corporation or institution or government agency or nonprofit and work solely for themselves in what I call the Gay Male Solo Entrepreneur. And this has been in many fields, both in the United States and worldwide. And while I've mostly helped gay male individuals, I've also helped gay male couples who open their own business in what I call the pop and pop store, instead of the old mom and pop store idea. Opening your own business is a product of various forces: economic, social, financial, and also with your values. I felt held back and frankly underpaid in the nonprofit and the public sectors. I was an ambitious guy who wanted to go as far as my interests and aptitudes and motivation and ambition and efforts would take me. And working for others, I was always at the mercy of upward mobility forces, which, let's face it, are not always meritocracies. There's politics involved. And there are a number of, frankly, disgusting situations of anti-gay and anti-HIV discrimination that I experienced, and even some discrimination based on gender as a male in an all-female office one time, which is not the more common sex discrimination that we hear about, but it does happen. What held me back, as it does with so many others, but especially gay men or any historically oppressed group, was self-doubt. It takes a lot of confidence, a lot of faith in yourself and in your community, and certainly some risk tolerance, to open your own business and becoming partially and especially if fully self-employed. Part of my work with my clients now is helping them address anxiety, self-doubt, worthiness, imposter syndrome, ambivalence, and just overall self-empowerment, which is the name of my 2013 book, Self-Empowerment, Have the Life You Want, that it all takes to be a business owner. I've been inspired by so many resources that I am grateful for. Without their help, I wouldn't have been successful. Those people who were teachers, professors, coaches, mentors, and experts empowered me to empower myself. Now I want to be a resource for you, taking what I've learned along the way as a successful business owner and helping you to do the same, or at least learn to consider to do the same, and have that as an option that is real and not just wishful thinking or an unrealized pipe dream that you have. Much of what I can teach you is going to be in the form of a new e-course that will be sold online from my websites, and that's currently in development. But until that's fully available, I wanted to share with you a preview of that to maybe whet your appetite for your interest in taking the course and for you thinking about your opening your own business. We'll cover a lot today, but there's even more planned in the course. So when I told a colleague of mine that I was doing this, he said, "What makes gay men opening their own business any different from anyone else trying to do that?" And he made a good point. Much of the advice, guidance, tutoring, coaching on how to open your own business would be applicable to many people, regardless of their variable demographics. But I think there are special considerations for opening a business that pertain to women, people of color, immigrants, people with disabilities, people with lots of capital to invest, people with little or no capital to invest, and certainly variation in who the person is, where they live, what their business community needs with its customers or clients in terms of products or services, and where that is located, because there are always national or regional differences. And I know there are listeners of this show all over the world. But this will focus today on American gay men, but people who live in other places can hopefully apply this, to their own locale. It's just that some of the terminology and some of the laws, I'm sure, will differ from place to place. Let's talk about now gay business owners, the pros and cons. So the pros of gay men as business owners or potential business owners has an interesting mix of assets and liabilities and pros and cons. On the pros list, we have male privilege in society. We just do. People discuss the gender pay gap, which is a long-standing and very unfair gap between men and women and how much they are paid for the exact same work. Gay men have an odd mix that they have a disadvantage as a sexual minority, as an oppressed minority group, even in the present day. But we also have male privilege, and if we are also white, we also have white privilege. But I've worked with many gay men of color who have become very successful entrepreneurs, but they had to overcome both homophobia and racism, sometimes in varying proportions along the way. Gay men as business owners establish for themselves often a reasonably high income, higher than many or most corporate opportunities, depending on the situation. There are statistics that say that Americans who own their own business are among the most affluent Americans there are. Despite those with high corporate salaries and the related benefits like healthcare and 401k retirement programs and paid time off and stock options or profit-sharing programs, etc. Granted, I think there is some debate on whether you can earn more in your lifetime career years working as a corporate person or running your own business, or the other options like life in the military or working for a federal, state, or local government job, or for a university or a school system. What I've enjoyed the most about working for myself is the flexibility. I think I probably don't earn as much as some of my family members or clients or friends who have traditional corporate jobs, but I've also had what I consider the extreme luxury of doing exactly, very exactly, in fact, what I want to do and love to do over a very long time, decades now, and being able to, within reason, set my own schedule. But we'll get to some of that later. And doing what I love to do means being a provider, being a licensed psychotherapist in California, and being a life and career and relationship and executive coach all over the world, and also being a sex therapist and educator. I just have a lot of roles within my overall profession, but it is as a gay male provider supporting gay men in their mental health and well-being. When gay men work for themselves, we often do not have children, but with some exceptions, and more lately I've noticed in my clientele. And either with partner or spouses or as single gay men raising children, as two of my current coaching clients are doing by way of the surrogacy process. But if one or both or more partners in a relationship run their own business or share one, there is a certain conservation of resources that I've noticed that helps these men live generally a higher socioeconomic status lifestyle, because none of their labor is going to the owner of a company or a set of corporate shareholders or to a big institution. They get to keep what they earn after overhead expenses and various taxes, and this can contribute to a long-term financial security and building your nest egg over time very efficiently. Let's look at the cons of being a gay male business owner. There are plenty of challenges for the gay male solo entrepreneur business owner. We are, as I said, an oppressed minority in society globally. And there's research that shows not a gender pay gap, but a sexual orientation pay gap. Straight men were surveyed to earn more than gay men on average, which is explainable by either the oppression of gay men in the workplace to fail to be hired or fail to be promoted, or the advantage of straight men who bond with other straight men in their working environment in the old boys network, that harms both women workers and gay men, or anyone who is not part of straight, white, heterosexual men. Sometimes they call it the glass ceiling for women, and they call it the rainbow ceiling for LGBT folks. Another challenge for the gay male business owner is if he is known to the community of customers and clients as a gay-owned business. These days, and this is more rare, because even some anti-gay people will still shop at a gay-owned store or eat at a gay-owned restaurant, even perhaps unknowingly. But gay-owned businesses can be essentially boycotted by anti-gay customers or clients. For example, clinically and academically, by my experience, I can certainly treat in psychotherapy or provide coaching to straight people, but they tend to overlook that. And even though I try to make everyone welcome who has a sincere intention to do the work with me, but I don't tend to get the straight clients, because whereas straight therapists and coaches see gay male clients all the time, and this is only question when situations arise where even the most well-meaning straight therapists or coaches don't quite get it on lots of different subtle levels, and then they come to see me as a gay men specialist and as a gay male peer. Sometimes that's about being gay, and sometimes, such as in sex therapy, it's also about being more comfortable just talking to another guy, including sensitive topics like sexual dysfunctions or erectile dysfunction or desires or fantasies, or just any kind of troubleshooting in their sex life, or any kind of concern where the guys need to be very candid and frank and trusting to discuss things they might not discuss with anyone else, sometimes including their own doctor. But any gay-owned business is likely to be known as such, and then they can be listed in LGBT-owned business directories or local LGBT shopping districts, or within a network of gay male customers and clients who recommend gay male business owners and service providers just for the specific needs that gay men have, whether therapy and coaching like me, or the special financial planning or tax planning or legal issues or gay sensibility, aesthetics, or tastes culturally. And sometimes we just like to keep it in the family. Gay men sometimes like to patronize other gay men just on principle so that we support our own community economically. And other communities have done that historically as well. Another challenge the gay male business owner can have, maybe more rarely, is having to explain their same-sex couple status, such as if they and their partner own a business together. Working with some vendors, suppliers, service personnel, employees, government permit clerks, banking professionals, or real estate professionals might have a certain speed bump, when these people are making the mental gear shift away from how they would conceive and relate to a straight couple owning a similar business. I've gotten, over the years, a little bit of this, what now? You're a same-sex couple buying a property together, and both of you are taking this on? And who do I talk to, since the two men present as handling things equally in an egalitarian partnership? I had a mortgage broker on a refinance briefly who couldn't understand that same-sex married couples have the same property rights and procedures in applying for a mortgage as straight ones. And, she was replaced fairly quickly. But a same-sex couple really threw her administratively when it didn't need to. There are no differences. Let's talk now about a very important aspect of all of this, which is thinking about the mission of your business. Owning your business is, as I said, enormously rewarding. You're doing something for a livelihood that has meaning beyond just putting food on the table. You are, as one of my many coaches said, making a living while making a difference. So the mission of your business is important. Ask yourself, why do you want to do this? Why is having this business important to you? What can you do if it's your baby? You're the one in charge. You're the one to conceive and design and implement every aspect of it that you wouldn't be able to do if you were working as part of someone else's business. Even if you're a freelancer, like an actor or designer or a writer, and you're part of a larger whole project, like a play or movie or a magazine, you're still bringing the product of your original intellectual content for sale to a buyer. That's true if you're a Hollywood makeup and hairstylist, or a guy on the beach selling ice cream out of a cart, or running a CPA firm. Lots of nonprofit organizations have a written mission statement that guides the founding of the organization and guides all aspects of what the organization does. It's the, forgive my French, raison d'être for the entity's existence. And it's usually about fulfilling a need in your community that people will literally spend money to fulfill, while at the same time, it's something that you want to do or provide because you have a special interest in it, or a talent and aptitude for it, or a special enjoyment doing it. It's the old saying, when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. It's often something that you would do for free, even if you didn't have to make a livelihood in a capitalistic modern society. But you can't do it for free. You have to have a livelihood. So it's a way of monetizing a skill or a talent that you have, that you want to provide, that others, like your clients and customers, want to see you provide. It's kind of a win-win situation. Let's look also at the purpose of your business. So beyond crafting the mission of your business, who you are and who you serve, there is also the purpose. I'm just asking why. Why does this business entity need to exist in your community? What's the point? Will the people you are marketing to locally or remotely, such as online, be willing to patronize your business in fair exchange of money spent for goods and services received? If the public does not find your product or service relevant to them, even if it's just something they do for fun, then it won't meet the threshold of them spending their hard-earned money for it. But if your business does meet a sufficient critical mass of people to patronize your business, especially over a long term, then you have an exchange or a covenant with your community. It's a win-win situation. It's an agreement and a kind of a business commercial relationship with lots of different people. Take any business that you know, the most common things like Heinz ketchup. The Heinz family got very, very rich just because people like to put ketchup on their burger or their French fries. The Wrigley family got rich selling very low-cost chewing gum over and over and over. RuPaul got rich producing his own TV show that so many people enjoyed watching that advertisers of products bought commercial airtime on those shows. An accountant might make a living providing professional financial and tax advice to everyone who has finances or files taxes, which is just about everybody. It's a matter of thinking to yourself, what do you like to do, at least enough to do a lot of it, week in and week out, for theoretically many years, that people out there will patronize in sufficient numbers or sufficient magnitude for you not only to survive economically, but to have the standard of living that feels right for you, which could be all up and down the scale of society. Many gay men like to be affluent because, despite the stereotype of having good taste, we do as a group tend to like nice things, and we're willing to work sometimes very hard to be a part of those nice things. Perhaps at times even more than the typical average suburban American straight family. Gay men can sometimes pursue high-income professions, either in their own business or someone else, like a big Fortune 500 company, because after a lifetime of being denigrated for being gay by possibly parents or siblings or teachers or clergy or public officials and so on collectively, gay men can have a certain living well is the best revenge approach to their adult life. Maybe as a psychological defense against the denigration they experience growing up, or maybe just, because they want to have or do certain things in their life, hobbies and ways that they spend their time. Let's look at something called commercial value. So similar to thinking about your business's mission and purpose is considering its commercial value. And this can be a tough one. If your business is too narrow, or it's not relevant to your local community or an online community, or if they're just not that into you, your business will not be robust. If you open an Ethiopian food restaurant in a small town in West Virginia, I'm not sure you would do well. The local culture just isn't drawn to what they mostly would consider exotic or even alien cuisine. But if you open this same restaurant on a chic street in an urban shopping district that is cosmopolitan in lots of other ways, then you might really thrive. Before launching your business, you have to consider and maybe do some research or get some professional consultation on the commercial value to what your business proposes to do now and for theoretically many years to come. Similar to your mission, let's talk about the values you have as a business. When you're a business owner, you have your mission and purpose and commercial value or viability, but there is also conceiving how you want to be viewed as a business in your community. What are its values? What are your values that get manifested or expressed by way of your business? Do you want your business to be part of a civic movement, such as the urban improvement of a certain city's area? Do you want to be involved in some kind of philanthropy, such as sponsoring highway cleanup or being a sponsor of a local Little League baseball team or a charity of one cause or another, such as owning a restaurant that gives its surplus unused food at the end of the day or the week to a regional food bank or resource to fight local hunger? Do you want your business to be an environmental good citizen and have a green business in your space and in your materials that you use? Do you want to make a point of creating opportunity for people to work, such as jobs for young people or people of color or people with disabilities or veterans? Even though you can't discriminate in these areas, you can certainly do things to make people from underrepresented groups in your community feel welcome to apply. And to be a part of what you're building and to create as much as you can a sense of opportunity that's very broad, but particularly for traditionally oppressed groups. Think also about your place in time and history. Another consideration for your business is remembering that you as an entrepreneur and your business as an entity are products of your own time and place in history. If I were a gay men specialist, psychotherapist, and life career executive coach, or certainly as a sex therapist in the 1950s, even in a known historically progressive area like Los Angeles and Hollywood, I wouldn't have been able to make a living, as it would not have been legal to advertise as such. Gay men like 1920s and later Hollywood film star and interior designer William Haynes was an openly gay actor, which is very rare at that time. And when his being gay undermined his film acting career from the higher-ups, he became an entrepreneur by being a talented and sought-after interior designer to his movie star friends' homes, and he was very successful with this. Gay men becoming self-employed entrepreneurs has been historically a workaround for homophobia in the workplace. You just take your case directly to the people, and while some will avoid you, others will patronize you exactly because you are a gay-owned business, and you can very liberatingly set your own terms. So it's an act of self-empowerment that gets you out of some of the systemic prejudices of working in a corporation, like the rainbow ceiling. Let's look a little bit at administration. These bigger ideas about mission and purpose are very important to identify and clarify and cultivate, especially early on in the process. But I have found a lot of my success has been in having very high tolerance for the boring stuff, the administrative aspects of running a business, which every business requires. There is no getting around the boring stuff of administration. I think you would do well to just kind of accept that a certain percentage of what you do is going to be boring, pain-in-the-neck administration. And there's a lot of it, and it largely falls to you, with perhaps delegating to other staff only but further in the process. I employ several freelance people in my business that help with all kinds of tasks and services, but I needed to learn to do most or all of them first, especially when it comes to financial management and marketing, which is what sustains your business over time. Like I said, my e-course will go over some of these things in more detail so that you really feel informed and empowered about what you need to know when you're approaching opening your own business. There are things to analyze, like your strengths and weaknesses. There is reflecting on your own assessment of what skills do you have versus ones you have to learn yourself versus ones you hire other people to do. And the discerning judgment of these things is critical so you don't set yourself up for hardship or failure. And part of your approach needs to be self-aware and self-reflect on your own sense of discipline. That's another big one, is about discipline. Without discipline and a certain amount of focus and even sacrifice, you are undermining your own mission. So you accept that. You accept that you exchange self-empowerment and flexibility and maybe some affluence of owning your own business, but the price to pay is that you do have to be disciplined. There aren't an entire corporation of people around you in any way picking up the slack. It all falls to you, and you have to be comfortable growing into a leadership role. I was not much of a leader. I've always been a really good follower in my lifetime. But when I started getting involved in more LGBT activism, and certainly opening my own business, I had to get comfortable with what it meant to feel like a leader in my own way. Because I'm not real extroverted, I'm kind of shy, and I had to learn what leadership meant in the context of my personality and my values. So businesses are created in types or certain legal entities. If you're working as an individual, you can just be a sole proprietor and hang a shingle and be in business, and you just report your income by way of your Social Security number for your income taxes. I did this, exactly this way for many years. Later, you can take this up to the next level by forming entities like a professional corporation, which is what many professionals have in California, which I am, as a therapist or a doctor or a dentist or a plumber or an electrician and so on. Others might have the LLC, the limited liability corporation, so that your personal assets, like owning a home, are protected if anything goes flooey with your business entity. It's a legal cover your ass kind of thing. It can also lower your taxes, which When you're a business owner is a very considerable topic and something that is very easy to overlook and underestimate at first. I narrowly missed having a real hardship with taxes, but I found my own way of dealing with this, of saving for this every week. And I teach this in the e-course so that you don't have to worry about being in the hot seat with Uncle Sam, because the last thing you want is to overlook your taxes and get saddled with a big bill, which is a big tax bill debt that you weren't anticipating and that wasn't part of your annual budget. You got to dig yourself out of the hole if that happens. It's much easier to never get behind with your tax filing and your tax payments in the first place. If you keep up with it, it's actually pretty easy. So my network of getting started as a professional corporation in California after many years of being the sole proprietor came from my gay certified financial planner, a guy named Thomas Donnelly in Los Angeles. Very good certified financial planner for my husband and me. And he referred me to Rick Server of Server and Associates, which is a CPA firm in Los Angeles, who guided me. And somewhat, I had to Google a lot about this, and that was a little frustrating because Rick was a man of few words, and I needed to be taught from A to Z all about how to become a professional corporation, but he didn't have time for all of it. He had time for some of it. And so I had to kind of fill in the gaps, again, by being self-disciplined, by being a self-starter and, Googling any kind of term that I didn't understand, and also teaching myself, software like QuickBooks, which is an accounting software for businesses. And I had to kind of figure out how you become a professional corporation in California, which takes filing certain forms with the state. There was an online service called, I think it's bizshop.net, B-I-Z, shop.net, and they help with this enormously. It was really worth it to outsource with their fee. It wasn't that much. The strictly administrative aspects of setting up a corporation and filing your taxes as an S-corp, which sounds intimidating at first, but you get through it. And then sole proprietors don't need to do all that. So whether or not you form a corporation or whether you're a sole proprietor is kind of a debate, but it's something that you get some advice on about what would be the ideal situation for you as a person and for your business as a business. One of the things I teach my clients and in the e-course is the idea that when you work for yourself, you have to approximate an equivalent of the things that you might see on your paycheck stub when you work for someone else. Take a look at your pay stub sometime, if you don't already, and look at the various line items on your pay stub or pay statement that are deductions. There are often lines for federal tax withholding of a certain amount, state tax withholding if you're in a state that has income tax like California, Social Security and Medicare withholding, maybe a line for your health insurance premiums, your share of costs beyond your employer, maybe a pre-tax healthcare savings account, which is a nice perk, maybe a 401k or a 403b, which you would have in a nonprofit or university or government job, pre-tax investment account for savings for your retirement, or maybe it's a pension plan contribution. Some states have a line item for contributing to short-term or long-term disability or unemployment programs. I've used California's short-term disability, SDI program, twice in my lifetime, and it was a real lifesaver. And I even opted in to pay into this state program when I became self-employed and when they started allowing that. Because long-term disability is if something really catastrophic happens that disables you, an illness or an injury. But short-term disability is if you have an illness that's more short-term or an injury that you recover from in a number of weeks. And then the SDI program covers that. Not every state has that, but California is kind of big on social services because of its more progressive political atmosphere. More conservative states don't really do that as much. Understanding all of your insurance coverage needs is a big deal in your business and your personal life, but it can take a chunk out of your budget. You know, the thing with insurance, you don't need it until you need it, but then you really need it when you need it. So having insurances of various kinds can save you from financial ruin if something bad should happen in your life. And I've found that, you know, things happen for just about everyone eventually. So you think about insuring your, for me, from professional malpractice, which providers have to have, for your premises, of the actual place where you have your business, your health insurance, your life insurance, your disability insurance. All of these are things that have you covered. Vehicle insurance, you know, it adds up. It's not fun because insurance premiums can add up, but it's all part of taking care of yourself, and it's all part of the overhead that's kind of the cost of doing business. That's another thing that's huge in this, is that you have to have the self-acceptance of the idea of, you know, some things just suck. There are just overhead expenses like taxes and insurance. They suck, but you know, it's got to be this way in society, and you just budget for that. So let's look at goals. You know, owning your own business uses the word goals a lot in its vernacular. I work with clients on this a lot, about short-term and long-term goals. And there can be immediate goals, like what do you need to do today, this week, in service to your business. There can be ones in the short term, like what's happening this month or this quarter, or the medium term, what's happening in the next few years. And then in the very long term, about where are you going with this? Are you going to take this business all the way into an older age where you might retire from it? And this is how you grow as a person and as a business and make things happen over and over that can be very rewarding. You just follow one goal after the other. My starting to offer e-courses, you know, that I've developed has been and is still a goal of mine. And moving from working in a commercial office to working online was a goal. Goals need to be carefully planned because they too can have pros and cons or risks and benefits. You know, having your own business is a lot of cost-benefit analysis and a lot of thinking about return on investment of what you're spending money on versus what it really does for the health of your business. And that involves some risk and some trial and error, but without risk, there is no growth. And this can be exciting, but also a little daunting, all at the same time. One of the greatest impediments to people starting their own business is the idea of risk. You know, it can feel safe to work for a large organization or a big institution, but these corporations and stuff can have downturns or layoffs, or even getting fired for performance sometimes, or even getting fired for stupid reasons, like a new boss comes in and wants to clean house and bring in all their friends instead. You know, in the course of your working life and your career, there are surprisingly few safe havens or guarantees, particularly in the United States, that kind of has this very little safety net, every man for himself or everyone for themselves kind of attitude. You really have to provide for yourself, which is why you have to have those insurances, because there's not a lot of government help exactly in some of these cases. So you have to do it for yourself. And certain concepts like marketing and saving do tend to contribute to success very reliably. If you're very good at marketing your business, and marketing your business is just telling people what you do over and over and over again, and then also saving, you know, saving and investing pretty consistently over time for the long term, that very consistently, I've seen in my observation, contributes to success, regardless of who you are or where you live or what kind of business that you have. So does also being flexible. Being flexible and amenable to change and kind of reinventing from time to time is also a factor of success that I've seen over many years doing this with myself and with my clients. Let's also talk about staffing. You know, when you own your own business, you are obviously the boss. You get to have many or most of the rewards as the owner's prerogative. You know, you're the boss, and that's great. But you can't do it all alone. You know, first, there isn't time to do everything. And second, you might not want to do everything about everything. As much as you can, you want to do the fun parts and delegate some operations to people who can or like to do those things. Over the years, I've learned that recruiting, hiring, developing, supervising, evaluating, and changing staff is kind of an art form. You develop your own style of doing that. Hiring and working with staff is a certain kind of interpersonal relationship. You know, it's a commercial covenant that you enter with them, and it has to be a win-win situation, or it just doesn't endure. The relationship doesn't last. Even when it's a great working relationship experience, it's the nature of employment that it is inherently temporary, including your own, when you eventually change businesses or retire and, you know, not just die there. But you have to accept that hiring others is like an affair with a beginning and a middle and an end, but it is very much not like an affair when it comes to the rules about what the relationship can be and not be. You know, for lots of good moral and legal reasons, you have to know how to treat people, to motivate them, to support them, to challenge them, and certainly to respect them, and also to have healthy boundaries with them. That is unfortunately necessary, to have to be very clear about what must and must not happen, especially for things like legal compliance or ethics. You want to be one of the good guys in business and not contribute to things like sexism and patriarchy and ableism and prejudices of so many kinds of things. That takes a lot of work, you know, to know what to do and to know what not to do. Sometimes you have to have advice from a lawyer or take a seminar on legal issues. Therapists have training on legal and ethical issues every 2 years when we renew our state license. It's a big deal. What not to do is especially important, and it's kind of like navigating a maze. If you don't challenge your staff enough, they are a waste of resources, and really, they're more trouble than they're worth to the business. And I've seen this with especially unmotivated or even dishonest people. But if you don't reward the people who really come through for you, you won't have them around for very long. If you don't value them, they will find someone else who will. I've done a lot of what we call clinical supervision of new therapists as they accumulate clinical practice hours of experience in order to be eligible to sit for the state licensing exams. And this has been rewarding and challenging. The best bosses not only think about the work at hand in the business that just needs to get done, but also they accept a certain mentoring role, even if you're younger than they are, but especially to younger people who are just starting out. And you help them as a mentor as others have helped you to get where you are. You pay it forward, you know, while everyone else, you know, we all have a job to do. They do, you do. But there can be this staff development and teaching and mentoring component and developing people in the experience of working in your business. Not everybody does this, but I have always liked to do this because whether it's you growing as a person wherever you are, or whether you're the boss and you're mentoring other people, there's this idea of growth in the workplace. And when I do that, I feel like I'm honoring the people historically who have taught me or have mentored me. But, you know, I'm also aware of the people who did not support me, such as bosses who were abusive or cruel or prejudicial or bigoted or guilty of even criminal activity in the workplace that I saw in the nonprofit sector and in the public sector, which was really disgusting. I was quite a bit disillusioned when I got out of grad school and discovered some of the wrongdoing in nonprofit organizations over and over. Not everybody, but too many. The first 3 or 4 places I worked after graduation. And so, you have to be optimistic as you approach the workplace, but not naive. You run into all kinds when you run a business, and you have to be ready to respond to a variety of scenarios. And these various scenarios are often what I coach clients on, especially in executive coaching, as they come up. And then, you have a confidential resource to bring those problems to when we troubleshoot together. Let's talk also about the idea of competition in business. You always run a business in the context of what kinds of similar resources or businesses like yours came before you, and who else does what you do concurrently. Sometimes as very direct competitors who are competing for business and market share in the same arena you're in. And what might come after you've had your turn, when you leave the function of your business roles to the next generation. And these contexts happen for everyone everywhere. It's another rule of business. We pass this way but once. One of the things I've been thinking about lately is how fast the time goes, from starting in your business, in your career, to nearing a time when you're at least thinking about retirement, even if it's still a ways off, like for me. Thank you very much. I'm getting old, but I'm not that old. It's important to enjoy the journey along the way, because I do find, a career goes by fast. That's why it's so important to do the things that you certainly like or even love, because it's a little bit scary how fast a career goes by. There's a healthy competition when there is a community of like-minded and like-skilled people who collectively band together to serve the community in what you do. Usually in subtly different ways, because you can't be everywhere and serve everyone, even if you're in the same field. So even as a gay men specialist therapist, I specialize in things like this, career support and development, even though I can also treat things like clinical depression and anxiety and PTSD and substance abuse recovery and other things like relationship and couples therapy and sex therapy and family of origin issues. It's a lot. But I have colleagues who are especially focused on things like substance abuse recovery, or working with younger guys, or working with gay dads, even though we all tend to do a variety of things in helping gay men live better lives. But on the other side of that, there can be toxic competition, though, in any business. Things like theft of intellectual property, false advertising, or various forms of unscrupulous business practices, sometimes deliberate and sometimes accidental by people who are just being overzealous or hasty in their ambition. But you have to deal with this and be prepared for it to protect your assets and your interests and your own resources from those who would frankly steal them or undermine them. And having good legal advice, having a clear policy on ethics, knowing how to set appropriate boundaries with all your business relationships are all components of the healthy business. There has to be a balance between an ambitious optimism and the reality that could make you cynical from the hard knocks if you're not careful, especially in a competitive, capitalistic society where money or status is involved. And gay men can be just as ruthlessly competitive as straight men, sometimes even more in these kind of dramatic Real Housewives kinds of catty ways. But there is generally a community of cooperation. It takes a village. And you support each other's success as they support yours in the same or in different businesses, because everybody's got to put food on the table. I've mentored and groomed my own competition sometimes of young gay male therapists, because we've created a sound community of providers serving gay men. And it's a team and a collective that shares the mission, that word again, of supporting specifically gay men's quality of life. I mean, somebody has to. Let's talk about selling or retiring from your business. Usually I'm helping guys with how to start or sustain or grow their business. But there is also attention to when it's time to bring a career in for a landing, either changing roles or entering retirement, usually in late middle age or early seniorhood. There are special considerations to leaving a business or selling it, just like there are so many considerations when you're starting. Thinking about how the story ends can be an important part of thinking about how it begins. What do you want your overall overarching purpose of your business to be or have been? What do you want to say that you've accomplished when it's time to stop and let someone else take over? Well, we might reinvent ourselves many times over during the tenure of our business. Our last reinvention is going from being in the business to being out of it. Think of a stage play. Making your entrance is a grand thing, but you always want to leave them laughing, like they used to say in vaudeville acts, and make your exit gracefully. We don't all get to see business gracefully having a beginning, middle, and end, but we ideally prepare and plan for that. And we all know when the time is right. I've learned this from people I admire who are older than me. They enter the scene, they make their mark in their body of work for sometimes many number of years, and then they move on. They become retirees. They become expatriates in other countries. They explore other aspects or roles of themselves beyond what their main professional identity was. And that's okay. If you knew your parents' or your grandparents' roles in their business, you might have already seen examples of this. It's about what you want to create as your total body of work in your professional lifetime. People who have their own business often have the advantage of having a strong sense of what their legacy was. People who work in corporations or schools or government agencies can have this too, but when you have your own business, it's especially rewarding because it's all driven by you. It's your brand, it's your entity, it's your storefront, it's your products that you created or sold. And you help move the field of your business along, your part in it historically, whatever your field was or the nature of your business is or was. Lastly, let's talk about planning. What's key to all of this, a successful and rewarding business, making a living while making a difference, is planning. So I hope that all of this gets you thinking and hopes to hone and focus your own thoughts and feelings about how you might see yourself as the gay male solo entrepreneur. And there are ways to make it not scary or daunting or intimidating, but exciting and empowering from simply being informed and supported. You can't do this alone. So if you would like more customized, specific help to you, consider discussing your professional self in therapy with me for guys in California where I'm licensed for that, or coaching from anywhere in the world, and we just figure out the time difference when we schedule appointments on Zoom. This today can get you started, and if you're interested, the e-course, which goes into some more depth than we did today, will be available soon, and I can keep you informed about that in future episodes, as well as other e-course offerings that are in the works. These are designed for people who want more than a podcast episode, but maybe just circumstances don't allow for you to become my client. So it's going to be somewhere in between. That's an offering that you can purchase that hopefully has good value for you. But if you want individualized help sooner, email me at the websites ken@gaytherapyla.com or ken@gaycoachingla.com. Both of them will reach me. Or you could call or text, or even on WhatsApp, 310-339-5778. So 310-339-5778, and I would be happy to help. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.